On this episode of Burnout, we become one with the meese.
A pack of meese.
No, a flock.
A flock. Flock of meese.
A flock of meese. Bit.
This is a 1954 MGTD kit car. It's made by a company called Fab, so it's all fiberglass body. I bought this car back in 2015 before Burnout was even an idea, so it had already come a decent way before we decided to make it into an episode and road trip this piece of junk. The 54 fiberglass body sits on a 1974 Volkswagen Super Beetle chassis and frame, so everything in the undercarriage, including steering and engine parts, as well as suspension and wheels, brakes, all that stuff, all of that is 74 Volkswagen parts. A lot had to be done to this car. Tarpey and I pretty much had everything to do, and there were countless number of things on every single list we made. First thing we needed to know was if this engine actually turned over no problem, because it had been sitting for over 12 years, and the person who had bought it before me never truly ran the car's engine. So what I needed to know was the engine seized up, and was that something I needed to get repaired, or was it good enough to keep in the car and wire up and get it on the road.
After we knew that the engine would turn over, we immediately started ordering parts and draining Jay's bank account in order to get this car on the roads so that we could take it up to Maine on a road trip to see a moose.
These I've actually had for a while, but I've yet to open them, and they are hood latches for the hood that just simply needs to be held down. Preferably not by zip ties, so I went ahead and ordered these. I think they're chrome.
What's wrong with zip ties?
Nothing, but
Alright.
We're putting nice things on
This piece
of junk.
Yeah. So we're gonna get to opening stuff. It's gonna be exciting.
See what else is on our list.
See what we can do tonight.
Gas tank install, driver seat install, because the other seats
Don't have an actual seat to install though.
Yeah, we're working on that. Lights, I can put on those.
Do
Wire
you have
the
all
dash.
of the lights? I thought we only had
No, the two lights I want to put on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you getting more?
As of now, no, because I don't need them.
Okay.
But wire dash, carpet. I want to see if the carpeting fits in, but we really shouldn't do that today. Hood latch, we talked about that. Battery install, we stole the battery off the Lincoln.
Yeah.
I
think we recorded that.
Yeah. And
So we should have a clip of that somewhere.
yeah, so maybe put that in. The gas pedal, I really am having a tough time with the gas pedal. The Volkswagen pedal is so bad.
It doesn't
it's so bad.
fit.
Yeah, so I might just makeshift something. Passenger door, that door doesn't actually close. Regulator, lower steering bracket. I can show a picture of that later, but I have a lower. We have a lower steering bracket that needs to be put in.
So for this kit car, you need a steering extension, but the kit, because Jay bought it from some guy, did not come with a steering extension or like half the parts that we need. So Jay went and bought a makeshift kind of U-joint steering extension for the car, and so that's kind of in there now, but we need to figure out how to mount it and such. So yeah.
And somewhere in there we're getting dinner.
And somewhere in there we're getting food.
Moment of truth. Did I order the right size?
on, big baby.
It's in there, alright. Oh, this is light.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Oh, dude.
Oh. 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 Look at those welds. That is beautiful.
Wow.
Alright, calm down there.
You can see yourself in this thing. Yeah, when you twist that, that's
Close.
Don't break it. Don't break it.
Close. Okay, we'll just leave that for now because that doesn't want to do anything. That's gonna be no fun to hook up to.
Put it in. I'm excited.
We can move the cardboard model now.
Yeah. This is my cardboard model gas tank. Wait, hold this for a second. Look how spot on it is. Look how spot on that is. Amazing.
He cut it to scale.
I cut it to scale. Let's see if it would actually fit. Dude, that might be perfect right there.
That's pretty good.
Mounted with 2 bolts.
Yeah.
Is that level? I'm gonna get a level.
I don't think the fiberglass is level.
No, it's the top level. That's all.
Well.
Installed. Yeah.
Huh.
Don't worry about the plumbing later.
I mean, we don't have anything to plumb it, so.
All it says is install.
Check it off.
These are going to be the one piece of chrome on the car that's actually still shiny.
Are there mirrors for this thing?
Yeah.
Do you have them?
That's another thing I need to get. But they're really basic mirrors.
Yeah.
You know how you make fun of the guy who had it before me?
Yeah, but I guess he did some
He
stuff.
moved the entire pedal system and the entire shifter knob and reassembled the entire emergency brake. Like, that's the hardest part.
I have more respect for you now.
Yeah.
See, this isn't all that different from my design. It's
Can
actually
you show
it's,
that to the camera. Show that to the
it's
camera.
no, but like in reality, it's kind of the same thing, but in the reverse order.
I think they did it that way so that you didn't just like.
Basically the same design as mine, not at all, sort of, maybe. Where? Oh. This is where I'm at so far.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work.
It's gonna work.
It's just not what was intended.
Now, believe it or not, between everything that was done on this car by Tarpey and I, what took the most amount of time was actually fitting in the front grille. You can see us struggling getting centimeters away from the hood fitting on exactly and the grille sitting in the right place. And honestly, that was the thing on the MG that took the longest time to complete. Now, the idea came up to go to Maine on a road trip in the MG, all because we wanted to see a moose. I thought it was a perfect opportunity and perfect excuse to take this car and put it on the highway and drive as far north as possible until I knew there was a moose and where the moose was.
So right about now I'm going to explain what I did with the gas pedal, because a little while ago we were struggling to install the gas pedal and get it in the right spot. However, I think I've figured it out. You see, this roller right here is actually supposed to be the roller that the gas pedal rolls on. So there's a little metal bar that goes like this, as my finger is, and then it will just roll it. And as you press it down, it would just pretty much roll with it and then roll back. And that's pretty much how you use the gas pedal. However, right here, I've actually just taken the roller completely off because this pedal has a warped little plate that you can see right there, and it didn't go down nicely on the little roller. So what I did is I just put it right up against the metal piece that the roller sat on, and from there it's just metal on metal, pressing the pedal and hoping that the car runs. And granted, it doesn't return all the way to idle. So when you push it, it doesn't have full spring back. As you can see, I can pull it back a little bit more. So until I come up with a better idea, we're going with that small spring and taking this roller off and hoping that it will work. But we'll see. Right, Ryan?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So we currently don't have seats for the MG. So what I did is I ran out to a fabric store and bought $124 worth of foam. So it's time to make these seats and make them comfy. Tarpy and I had absolutely no clue what we were doing, but we did end up making our own seats anyways, and they turned out to be okay. We simply just took some foam, stuffed it in the leather that we already had from the kit, and pretty much stapled it onto a board. And from there, we mounted the seats in the car, and it seemed to be okay.
We have a new master cylinder, nice shiny metal stuff, because our old one was clogged up and it was basically a piece of turd. So we got this new one. We're gonna put it in there.
Mind you, if you're actually paying attention, I previously owned 3 of these.
All of them were junk.
And had to buy a 4th.
They were all garbage.
So what did I do? I bought it off eBay.
Yep.
And we're installing it.
And it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Nothing makes me happier than shiny new parts. See, now this is just ugly. Can we paint those?
No.
No?
Nope.
Why not?
I want it to be ugly.
We got our list for today. On the list, which we've already started. Jay's working on it right now. We've got the master cylinder. We need to tighten the battery cables because we put those on a long time ago but never actually tightened them. So it's got a kind of weak connection there. We got to fix the gas pedal because there were issues with it previously that we chose to ignore. But now that the rugs are in, it just doesn't work at all. So we got to fix that. We're going to try and start the car for the first time ever today. So that's exciting. And we need to finish organizing the wires in the back because the rest of the wiring is done. We just need to finish that wiring in the back, and hopefully we can finish all that in the 6 hours that we're going to be working for today. But, you know, you never know. This is Burnout after all.
I will have you know that despite this car being utterly amazing and put together by true craftsmen, there is in fact a safety pin holding on our tachometer.
That's not the tachometer.
What is it?
It's the speedometer cable.
It is the speedometer cable.
There is literally a safety pin, and it's not even like a strong safety pin. Like, it's the smallest one he could find.
Oh, by far the weakest one I could get.
And that is what's holding on our speedometer cable to our wheel.
My excuse is that the other clips we had were just not as shiny. It wouldn't have matched the car. You know?
Yeah, we needed the chrome.
We needed the chrome.
Yeah.
And there's nowhere else to get that except for a safety pin.
Mm-hmm.
This brake pedal is getting harder and I'm concerned that I'm running out of fluid.
I will check in a moment.
This is Loom. What Loom does is protects your wires from the mice that come after them. But what it's doing in this case is pretty much protecting my wires from getting stripped and shorting out and blowing out the car because they are located directly behind my rear tire. So, the chances of them getting hit by dirt, grime, grits, and dead animals we run over are very high.
Jay is the master of organizing wires. I did all the wiring, but Jay organized it all, and that is far more important.
I don't know what he's talking about. I did all the blinkers.
He did like half of them.
No, I actually did them twice.
Yeah, because you did them wrong the first time.
But I did them twice.
Actually, the blinkers are like the one thing that doesn't work on this car, so I'll give him credit for that. Jay, you got any funny stories?
Yeah. I gotta pee.
Not ignition. Because when you flip the switch, I can hear the coil like click.
Back there?
Yeah. So we have ignition feed, we just don't have feed to the starter right now.
We don't officially know what's going on, but we're gonna fix it.
wants to run.
She wants to run.
She wants to run. Alright.
It's fuel starvation right now.
Wait, hold on, don't go yet.
Once we got the engine running, I was dying to drive the car. Tarpy and I really wanted to actually go for a ride, but it happened to be snowing in pretty much spring, so we opted out of that choice and ended up taking it out about a week later.
Just pulled off the oil filter for the first time ever, and as you can see, it is covered in just dirt and gunk all over it, and that's not good. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, that is real nasty.
The sun has since come out, and that means that we get to drive this thing. So we are currently in the process of
What are we in the process of, Jay?
driving the car. No. What we did was we weren't sure if it was the trans that was slipping or what, or if it had enough oil. So we went out and bought some gear oil for the transmission and put in brand new oil. And now we're about to legitimately take this car on the roads with no plates, no insurance,
No registration.
no problems.
It's fine. Please.
It's gonna be great.
Here we go. Jinx. Woo! Reverse it up. I think you're already in reverse.
Yeah. Here we go! Moving. Yeah! Woo! And it steers.
That steering is like 95% me. I'm just putting that out there right now. Hey, go forward.
I know. I'm in first gear.
Whew! It's not riding smooth. You forget the pattern. Here, I'll hold it here for you. Look, speedometer came work. We're already going faster than we did in the Lincoln. Alright, let's
Oh yeah, buddy.
take on that clutch and brake. Yeah.
I'm still going. I don't even care.
Go all the way.
You like my new car? No.
Still figuring it out. Hey, at least the engine has installed. Go, baby, go! Woo! I don't think the speedometer is right.
No, it's in kilometers.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh. I was like, we were not just going 30 miles per hour.
Oh my god.
Did you go back into first?
No, I'm in neutral.
Oh.
The amount of people who told me to never take this car on the highway was a substantial amount, but I didn't listen to any of them because we were going to Maine and we were going to see a moose, no matter what.
Where are we?
Kennebunk, Maine, I think.
Kennebunk?
Yeah.
We've already been
At a
through an
rest
entire entire tank of gas in the MG.
Yeah. We got about an hour away from Boston.
So we're driving along the side on the highway, and in the side mirror, I can see that the license plate's kind of bouncing up and down. So I pulled over, and right before it was actually going to fall off, we had previously duct taped it and put a hose clamp on it so it wouldn't fall, but the welds kept breaking, so we've resorted to taking the plate completely off the back and just zip tying it onto the car. This is probably what we should have done in the first place, but this was cooler.
It's a lot cooler. It's chrome.
And it's a light that works, so that's okay. Is this fill-up number 4?
Is it only 4?
I think it's 4.
One's 4.
We're making fairly decent time. At a consistent 68 miles an hour.
Right. So in a normal car, this trip is supposed to take about 4.5 hours from where we lived to where we were going. But in the MG, with all of the stops that we had to make for gas, for food, and for checking up on the car in a few places, it ended up being about 8 hours. And part of that is also because we could only go 68 miles per hour comfortably without having, the death wobble going on. So, we wasted about 4 hours of our life bringing this piece of junk to Maine.
We made it to Millinocket, Maine, middle of nowhere. It's buggy as hell, and we managed to not break down.
The car is in 2 pieces.
Huh?
The car and then the license plate mount.
Oh,
Everything
yeah.
else is in 1. We're good. We did it.
Full speed is officially 81 miles an hour. I'm
Hell
declaring it.
yeah, dude.
I'm declaring it.
Oh my god, okay.
Yeah,
This is Maine for you.
Once we were in Millinocket, Maine, and we were not on the hunt for moose, we were four-wheeling around with a couple friends, playing in some sand pits and on some dirt trails. And of course, the very first day, what did I do? I flipped Tarpy's four-wheeler and completely bent his steering. And it's terrible because for the rest of the trip, we kind of had to limp around his ATV and couldn't really put it to full capacity. And it was all because I wanted to drive it through a puddle and I ended up flipping it. So that was completely on me, but we still had a blast and it was totally worth bringing the four-wheelers on the trip.
I don't know if you can see, but there's like a million flies in this place. They're just like, I don't wear bug spray, but like I put on bug spray for this because there are just so many freaking flies. And I hope you can see them flying in front of the lens because there's just so many of them here. And all of a sudden I look up and I see him flying through the air and my ATV rolling over. Yeah, it's good times. Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, it's 100% my fault.
Yeah, it's also unfortunate that he broke my ATV because it is so much better in the sand than his. Because my back tires are a little older, so they're worn down a bit. So I just kind of glide across the sand, whereas his are like brand new, and so he just digs in. But oh well, you live and you learn. As if a broken ATV wasn't bad enough, the check engine light in Jay's truck came on,
right as we were about to leave.
My truck has a misfire on cylinder 4, so we're currently only running on 5 cylinders. And I'm a little disappointed the fact that the MG has out-reliabled my truck. And this dipstick on my truck is so bad that you just stick it in and it reads oil everywhere. So I'm not sure if that means we have too much oil.
There was
not
no
enough.
oil in it this morning when we checked. Basically no oil. So we're just loading it up.
But we saw a moose.
2. I didn't, he did.
There's 2 moose on the side of the highway, and once we got to Millinocket, Maine, which was our destination, we also saw 2 moose there. So I believe there are moose on camera at some point. But anywho, the MG made it there with pretty much no problems. We took off the license plate and put it on the back, as you know. And other than that, this thing is a joy to ride. It's the wind in your hair / ears is not that grand, but it works just fine. And to recap, like, we built this from pretty much the ground up. The chassis was put together with the steering and steering rods, and the engine was already sitting in the back. But the fact that between Tarpey and myself, we wired the whole car, put all of the body panels on, wired it up, and fixed all the lights. It's pretty awesome to see that it will make it pretty much 4.5, 5, 6 hours north without any issues.
Dude, can you believe this is a medium? It's freaking huge. I said a medium because I was expecting something like this.
That's a small.
It's huge.
Something that small would be a small.
You're a small.
You know what's small? This car on the highway.
This car is small.
Let's talk about the truck for a minute here. Not only did we make it to Millinocket, Maine just fine in both vehicles, but somehow this truck decides to misfire on piston number 4, and like, why? That's the worst time in the middle of nowhere, Maine. It misfires, and I'm pissed because I don't even know whether to actually drive this truck home or not. So what did we do? The cheapest fix possible, which is
You just
very
threw a
like
bunch
us.
of oil in
Yeah, we
it.
threw some oil in it and hoped for the best. And so far, so good.
Hey, we're about halfway home. Stopped for some lunch. But the thing that's funny is that the MG has been more reliable than his truck. So clearly we're doing something right.
So I want you to know that I looked at him earlier, right before we left to start driving home on this, and I said, listen, the moment I fix up a daily driver that has a roof, which you may see in another episode of Burnout, the moment that is fixed, I will never buy a newer car again in my life. I will use that as a daily driver because that piece of junk is not reliable and wants to break down at the worst possible moment, especially when I'm not in the greatest mood. So misfire my...
As David Freiberger likes to say, that junk is junk.
4-wheelers on the back, not junk.
No. Well,
No.
no.
Not junk. Not junk.
No.
That concludes this episode of Burnout. Stay tuned for more awesome cars, awesome shenanigans, and me beating Tarpey in random races.
Hey.
That's our out. Go like this. Nice.
So would you like to spin these nipples around?
Oh man. I think we should leave the nipples right where they're at. On this episode of Burnout, we set our expectations high and we skate by just under them.
On this episode of Burnout, we set our expectations low and fly high way over them.
No, we don't.